Welcome back to week four. Today we are going to cover some maybe new skills in Google Docs and talk about why Google Docs is more than just your basic word processing software. So, looking at our little slide deck we have right here, skills to master would be inserting and positioning an image, download a PDF using Smart Chips. The Explore button is listed on here, but that actually was phased out last January. So, that is a little bit dated, but it is no longer an option in Google Docs. Learn how to use the translate feature and use add-ons. And then I have a couple of other special things that I want to show you. So let's go ahead and get started. So I've created this just like test document that is, really not being used for anything so that I can kind of play with it a little bit. So let's talk first about inserting and positioning an image. So one thing I like to do for a lot of our formal documents that go out to the public is I like to put our logo on a document, and I like for it to kind of be at the very, very top at the header. So I can insert an image anywhere I want to in the document, but I'm going to double click so that my header comes up, and then I'm going to go to my Mountain Media button to insert an image, upload from the computer, and you may not be able to see my image I'm finding, and then find our Chilton County Schools logo. So it has put my image in there. It's a little larger than I want it to be, so I'm just going to click and drag those blue corners till it is the size I want it to be. I also have some different options about how I want this image to interact with the text. So the problem that we have sometimes with images in docs is that it's so structured, it's so stiff. So right now this text is in line. I can also wrap the text where the text will kind of fold around the image. I also can make the text go on top of the image or the image on top of the text, either one. I typically choose wrap text because it just flows a little bit better. So I'm actually going to move that a little bit higher too. And I just pulled it out of my header on accident. So we're going to leave it alone for right now. So now I have my Chilton County Schools logo as my header image. And then I've got my title and I've got my directions for new student enrollment. So if this is going to be a formal document that, let's say I'm going to email it to everybody, and I'm thinking I don't want them to mess anything up, so I'm not just going to go over here and share it in editor view. So I want to download it. So I have a couple of different choices. If I go to File and Download, I can choose to download it as a Microsoft Word document if I'm sending it to someone that doesn't have Google and it's got to be in, a Word form. I can do that. I also can download it as a PDF file. I love this because it's going to protect your text. When you download it as a PDF, they're not going to be able to alter it in any way. So, love that feature. I am going to skip over Smart Chips and come back to that. So, let's talk about Translate for a minute. Translate is something that is not 100% accurate all the time. However, it can really help us out in a pinch. So, a lot of times we automatically have our documents translated to Spanish by our translator here at the district. But let's say that I need these enrollment procedures to be in French, and I do not know anyone who speaks fluent French. So, I'm going to come up here to Tools. I'm going to go down to Translate Document. I'm going to rename it as my French copy of Google Bootcamp test document. And I'm going to choose French as my language and I'm going to translate it. What I love about this feature is it creates a whole new document. It doesn't overwrite your original one. And so now all of my directions are in French. There are some things that you kind of have to look for that I have been told before when I've had documents translated. Sometimes your verb agreements don't always go over into a different language, or certain phrases or things like that. So it may not make perfect sense, but hopefully this is still a step closer than providing just a paper only in English. So the translate feature is really nice. Let me demonstrate another way that we can use translate feature. If I go back to tools, I have this handy little button called voice typing. If you've never clicked that before, it brings up this little microphone right here. You click the microphone and it turns red. And as I speak, it is going to dictate my words right onto the Google Doc, period. However, you do have to say punctuation just like you do on talk to text, or it will not place any in your document. Exclamation point. So speaking of accessibility, this is a feature right here that you can use to help your students who maybe have fine motor skill issues or things like that, and they can compose a Word document. You do have to talk about punctuation, you have to talk about not inserting pause words, but let's also say that I have a student who speaks fluent French, and I don't know what they're saying, and I don't know what they're doing for their work. So you can change French to the language, click the microphone. The student is going to speak in French. Then you would go back to, I'm going to put it on back on English before I log back in and don't know what I've done. Then you could go back to Tools, Translate, and translate your French document to English. And now you know what your student said. So, a roundabout way to be able to communicate with some of your kids that where language barrier might have been an issue before, but not now. A couple of other things that are neat under tools. If we need to define a word, I can highlight a word and click on dictionary. It's going to give me the you know, breakdown of pronunciation and a definition with some synonyms of the word. So that's really nice and a nice accommodation for some students. Also, we have e-signatures now that we can incorporate into Word documents. We have variables that we can list. We can make a task list, and we can find our word count and our spelling and grammar. Another thing that we can do is we also can do this now called document approvals. So let's say that I have these, I'm going to take this away, that I have these enrollment procedures and I need to send them to our registrar, but I want her to like sign off on it before I send it out. So I'm going to make a request. I'm going to type in her email address. Please approve for enrollment. I can add a due date. I can also ask that they can edit this file, or I can lock it where she cannot edit it, and I can send her the request. What that's going to do is send her an email. She's going to be notified that I'm asking for her approval on a document, and then she'll be able to virtually or digitally sign it and send it back. And then it's going to provide a little history of our transaction over here. So it's going to show that our document's approved. This would be a great way to like have admins sign off on new forms, lesson plans, teachers sign off on student work, things like that. And you've got a record of it too right there. So that's really awesome. Add-ons are kind of like little extensions that you can add on. There are several that you can get for docs. I'm not a huge add-on user, just to be 100% honest. They do have add-ons for Avery labels, which would be really helpful if you were, an office personnel where you are working on making address labels and things like that a lot. Um, but they're just, I don't really typically use them. I just find another product to use. Okay, let's talk about smart chips for a minute. So I'm going to attach a copy of this document right here with a complete list of smart chips and what they look like and things like that. But I'm going to cover just a couple of my favorites. We can add any smart chips in by using our app key on our keyboard. So we can assign people to a doc. It will send them an email and notify them that they have been tagged per se in a document. We can do a date. I love the drop down because it looks so clean. So I have a test one already built. And so, you can list different options. You could insert this into a table and it could be something right inside your document. So that's really neat. I also, if I wanted to do, I'm just going to type a couple of things in here really quickly. If I wanted to do this called voting. So I can add little smart chips in front of these restaurant names. And as users come through, they can click those and like them or add a vote for which one they choose. And then unclicking takes your single vote away. I believe that multiple people could do that for different things. So that's pretty cool. And then you also have a timer. I love the timer starting right in the document. I think that's so super cool too. Another component of smart chips are called building blocks. And building blocks are kind of like little interactive blocks that can be embedded right into a document. A lot of these are real business oriented, like meeting notes, polls, product roadmaps, things like that. The email draft is by far my favorite. I wish that this had been around whenever I was teaching. Um, technology lessons because this would be a great way to help students learn how to compose emails without putting them in Gmail, and knowing what they're doing. You can talk about how you fill out each field, how you don't type your whole email in the subject line. And the best part of it is that if you did want to draft something to go to an email, all you do is click this blue button right here and it throws it over to your Gmail and you can send it. So I do have like a draft email made for all of our new hires. It's saved as a Google Doc in the same folder with all their forms. So whenever I am getting ready to send out that email, I open up this draft, I click on the Gmail button, and it throws it over to my email. The only bad thing is that you have to then go back and attach files. Or if you built a hyperlink, you wouldn't have to do that in here either. Another really cool one for all my computer science people out there is that you can insert coding blocks. So then you can type and practice your coding right here in a Google Doc. Because if you know anything about coding, when you start doing all those symbols and letters, it's going to throw a lot of red lines, and that really stresses some people out. So I think that that's a really helpful feature too in Google Docs. The last thing I want to mention are these document tab features over here. So I'm going to actually jump over to a document that I have built that has lots of pages. So this document has a total of 5 pages. It doesn't seem like that much, but I have lots of different categories. So whenever I have a user that wants to come in and find this stuff, if we wanted to go straight to enterprise reports, I can click on enterprise reports and it's going to take me straight there. If I want to go back to printing reports, I can jump straight there. So if you were zoomed in a whole lot more, this is really going to save a whole lot of time navigating through a document. So this is a really great way to build a table of contents. It's a great way to like keep running notes or running things about meetings and stuff like that, and then be able to get back to what you needed. So Google Docs, while you may have thought it was boring, it is definitely not. And there are lots of new features to make your docs more interactive and accessible so that they are great for all types of users.